So the Las Vegas Raiders have a really important game coming up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team that has now lost 2 straight. And it's a team that started off super hot. And some of that's kind of fallen off a little bit. Jags have had some injuries, which has impacted them, obviously. Similar to the Raiders, but both teams are kind of getting healthy. And now we are getting to the point, where I know some fans are out, but Pete Carroll, trust me, is not out on this season. Pete Carroll is going to try to win the next 6-7 games in a row if he can. And he's going to look to potentially slip into the playoffs, and if not the playoffs, at least have some momentum going into next season and potentially spoiling some other teams, some divisional teams potentially. So, although I know a lot of Raider fans are kind of out on this season, the season's not technically over, right? The Raiders actually got some great news today. They got Maxx Crosby and Adam Butler back at practice. Both guys are essentially out there, kind of running. Well, you can see here they're warming up. Both guys, and I don't know if the official report will state this, but pretty sure both guys are going to end up being limited coming back after not practicing for a couple of days. I don't have the report as of this recording, so we'll see what it actually is when that time comes. But Maxx Crosby's out there, Adam Butler's out there. I think if the Raiders are realistically trying to still win games, having those two guys back will be key. Now, obviously, we brought in Tyler Lockett. He's getting caught up this week, and he'll be looking to make his first start with the Raiders. We obviously also got Brock Bowers back. And I think the Raiders right now, going into this Jags game, they look a lot better on paper than they've looked at any point this season. Obviously, against the Pats, week 1, we found success, which is kind of crazy to think that the Patriots are one of the best teams in the NFL. And the Raiders beat them in the first game of the season. And honestly, they look nothing to like today, how they looked, back when the Raiders played them. That's not even the same team. I don't know how the hell the Raiders beat them, truth be told. But the Raiders did beat the Patriots. And I believe the Patriots are 6-2 at this point. And the Raiders are finally healthy. And, so the Raiders, they're looking to potentially win some games. And obviously having Maxx Crosby back will be key for the Raiders. Not having him out there, you realize how big of an impact he has. I think we're at the point where we're way too, reliant on our star players. If Brock Bowers or Maxx Crosby don't play, our D-line struggles, our pass game struggles. And hopefully the Raiders, are able to get to this point within the next season or two where that doesn't happen. If Maxx Crosby's out, doesn't matter. We're good. We got Tyree Wilson, superstar player, superstar pass rusher, or Malcolm Koonce gets back to form. Hopefully the Raiders can get to that point. Of course, they'll draft some other guys as well over the next 2 seasons. So we'll see what actually ends up happening. But obviously having Max back will benefit the Las Vegas Raiders. And I want to see how this defensive line can respond. The Jags have a pretty good offensive line. Right? They have 2 pretty good tackles. They have some pretty good interior offensive linemen. And they've, just generally speaking, they've been pretty solid, right? Like, the Jags are looking to come in and win and kind of get back on par. And one of the ways that they're going to plan to do this is they're going to rely on Travis Hunter, who is now expected to be the first read for the Jaguars passing game going forward out of the Week 8 bye. So, obviously, everybody knows Travis Hunter. Everybody knows Brian Thomas Jr. A lot of people are surprised that Brian Thomas Jr. has kind of fallen off this season. Now, I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if he just wasn't that good last year. Maybe it was just a bad team. One guy just kind of has, a bunch of yards and just ends up making a ton of plays. Maybe it's like, just that, just happened to have one good season. We'll see if he's actually a good football player down the line. But apparently now Liam Cohen is looking, and Jaguars head coach, is looking to make Travis Hunter the first read. And this is interesting because if you guys looked at that last game right before the bye, Hunter actually had a phenomenal game. He went over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. I think it was like 8 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. And he looked really, really explosive out there. And if you guys look at some of the routes that this guy has run in the first 7 games that these guys played, or first 6 games, I guess, technically. In the first 6 games these guys played, they were not running Travis Hunter downfield. In the most recent game, he was running real routes downfield. And he mostly played on the offensive side. And the Jags said, hey, we're going to make we're going to make it one of those things. We're going to get him the ball. We're going to make him the front of the offense. We're going to target him. We're going to make him the number 1 read. And now they're expected to continue to do that as they go forward. So I say that because the Raiders are going to have a tough matchup coming up against Travis Hunter. You can make the argument he is the most explosive player we played up to this point. And I know he's still a rookie, so I'm speaking before he's actually proven it, right? Because he'll have to go out there and actually do it. But I'm telling you guys, Travis Hunter is super, super explosive. You give him a little bit of space and he's gone. And obviously he got a little bit of confidence from that game he had 2 weeks ago. Coming to the Raiders, he's looking to potentially, do it again. And the Raiders are going to have to figure out a way to shut him down and be able to kind of shut him down and stop him. Also, against the Chiefs, the Raiders defense got exposed a little bit. Our linebackers got a little exposed. They weren't able to stop the Chiefs' quick game. Right, I think they had like 20 plus first downs. Every drive, basically 4 or 5 yards at a time. They just went right downfield on us. Well, part of that, and part of why they were able to do that is because they had Andy Reid running that offense. The Jags have an equal. No, I shouldn't say equal, but the Jags have a great offensive coordinator as well, right? Someone very similar to Andy Reid in terms of like designing and being able to understand NFL offenses. Liam Cohn's phenomenal. So they're going to potentially do those same type of things to the Raiders, right? It's going to be quick game. It's going to be short 2, 3, 4 yard passes. And I want to see if the Raiders will actually make adjustments and be able to shut that down. Now, obviously, we'll see if Pete Carroll's willing to allow Landon Roberts to stay on the sideline a little bit more snaps, and maybe you go in with like Tommy Eichenberg or Cody Lindenberg. Maybe you start Jamal Adams and you play like a straight nickel defense, and Jamal Adams is one of your starting linebackers. But if you're going to go out there with Devin White and Landon Roberts as there's 2 starting linebackers, and then Jamal Adams like that third guy, we're going to get crushed. So hopefully the Raiders can make some adjustments going into that game, and they're able to shut down that quick game. And hopefully it's not as easy as it was for the Chiefs. I think the Jags are a pretty good offense. But for the Raiders to have success, I think there's one thing they're going to have to do, and that's going to be to run the football. And apparently they're committed to this. JT the Brick obviously covers the Raiders. I believe he technically works for the Raiders. He hosts the Raider Nation radio, and he said something kind of interesting on his show. Now, he did an interview with Pete Carroll. He spoke to him after that interview. And he basically said that the Raiders are about to come in and rely super, super, super heavily on Ashton Jeanty as they go forward. I want to read to you guys some of what was said. So JT said, I have never been more sold on Pete Carroll wanting to run the ball than today. You want to take something out of this monologue and clip it? Clip this. I've never been more sold today on Pete Carroll's philosophy of running the football. Everything going forward moves on that. They have got to establish the run to get Geno Smith going. He didn't tell me that specifically, but I'm a talk show host, and I can tell you that was my impressions of the interview that I conducted. I look him in the eyes. He looks me in the eyes. He wants to run the football. Everything is predicated on getting this kid Ashton Jeanty going. If it does, it opens it up for Geno Smith. This is kind of interesting because JT obviously did that interview with Pete Carroll, and his takeaway is that the Raiders are going to come out and they're going to try to run the football. And I said this earlier. The Raiders' offense has never been better on paper than right now. And I say that because, maybe it's not, I guess technically because we swapped left tackles. Well, obviously, that's a downgrade there. But like from left guard to right tackle, we've kind of started to figure out which 4 guys make the most sense. I think also, Dante Thornton really wasn't that good of a wide receiver, and we tried getting him to get in there and have success when he was essentially not ready. On top of that, as soon as Brock Bowers went down, from the moment he got hurt, on paper, our offense took a huge hit. Ashton Jeanty, and I know it's still technically the same running back, right? But if you're seeing Ashton Jeanty in week 1 versus Ashton Jeanty in week 8, on paper, Ashton Jeanty in week 8 is going to be a little bit better. And that doesn't include the fact that now Chip Kelly has 7 weeks of football. He has 7 weeks of, I did these things and this is what worked and this is what didn't. I know Chip Kelly has not had success with the Raiders yet, but Chip Kelly's not a bad offense coordinator. He's had success in the past. He's a veteran at calling plays. He knows when something's not working. He's the type of coach that can make adjustments in the middle of the season. And I think having that bye week is going to allow him to have that success as we kind of go forward. He also kind of spoke about the importance of the run game. He talked about it. He's saying, hey, if you just throw the ball in every play, NFL defenses know how to shut that down. If you're behind and now you have to play catch up, you're not going to be able to run the football. So obviously Chip Kelly feels that the Raiders have to be able to run the football to have success. Pete Carroll kind of said those same exact things. I think the Raiders are going to come out and they're going to try to run the football, 25 times. If you guys remember, just a couple weeks ago, I believe it was the Titans game, the Raiders found a lot of success running the football, and we won that game. And a part of that was because we were able to run the football. And I think it was like 26, 27 total rushes. May have even been 30. Don't quote me on that. But we ran the ball a lot against Titans. We ended up winning that game. I know the Titans aren't that good of a team, but even against the Bears, if you guys remember, we found a lot of success running the football. That was the game in which Ashton Jeanty had that explosive 60-yard run. When the Raiders are able to effectively run the football, they have success. So, again, on paper, the Raiders should be better. So hopefully we go into this next game and we're able to actually run the football and actually find that success, and we're fully healthy. So, again, I know, maybe I'm just biased. Maybe I'm too much of a fan. You guys can say, but I'm excited for the Raiders, man. I really do think this team's going to turn the corner as we go into these next couple of weeks. And I do think we're going to find a little bit more success now than we did in the past, right? So we'll see what ends up happening. Got a couple more things I want to talk about. So if you guys have not heard, Travon Walker, who is the Jacksonville Jaguars' former first overall pick, I think he's in like year 4 now at this point. He talked about Brock Bowers a little bit. Now I want you guys to listen to this, and then we'll just talk about this on the other side.
Brock Bowers, what was he kind of like as a teammate, and what kind of sets him apart?
Man, Brock, he's one of those laid-back guys, but like if you ever interacted with him, he's great. He's great to be around, on and off the field. He's one of those. He's a very competitive guy, on and off the field. I can't say that. He's just a great person, great all-around person.
What about his tight end skills?
He's a great tight end. Obviously, you can go turn on the tape and see that. Me personally, he's one of the best tight ends in the league. And it's safe that I would definitely put him in that conversation.
He told a story once. He was like one of his first practices at Georgia. They put him on the line, told him to go block you. Just how good were those battles between you guys?
It was always good. Like me personally, I'm a run defender type of guy. So I'm not going. He was a freshman too, so I'm not going to let him come in and get some type of bragging rights on him. But it was always a great run blocker. He can run routes. He can do everything. So me personally, we all iron sharpen iron.
So there you guys have it. Obviously, Travon Walker talks highly of Brock Bowers. Walker, even though it's just 1 year and it was Bowers' first year, people talk about how Brock Bowers in his first year in college actually was his best year. Right? People feel like that. And Travon Walker kind of saw that first close up. He got the firsthand experience at that. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, because Travon Walker even talks about how, hey, I didn't let him beat me in any of those run blocks. I had to kind of take it towards him because of the fact that it was his first year. But it's going to be interesting to watch Brock Bowers block and block Travon Walker. And, it's just going to be one of those things where, Travon Walker is, he's a superstar when it comes to run defense. Brock Bowers is in his own right a superstar. And I know he's not considered like an elite run blocker, but he is really, really, really good. And Brock Bowers is fully healthy. So I'm excited to kind of see what the Raiders look like as we get into this next game. We'll see if the Raiders can actually find success. We'll see that matchup with Travon Walker and Brock Bowers kind of lined up across one another. And we'll see who wins that battle. Obviously, it's going to be one to be able to kind of get some bragging rights. So we'll see what ends up happening. Finally, there's some people who are talking about the Las Vegas Raiders and that they should go out there and get another quarterback. And I want to just take a couple minutes to talk about this. The Raiders are apparently predicted to acquire first-round quarterback, an explosive trade rumor. Basically, the rumor is that the Colts trade quarterback Anthony Richardson, and the Raiders are basically going to get him. We give up Eric Stokes. We give up a mid-round pick. And for that, we get Anthony Richardson in return. Now, I want to talk about this right here a little bit. First and foremost, I'm going to be honest, guys. If we could get Anthony Richardson for, let's say, like a third-round pick, I would have much rather traded for Anthony Richardson than like Kenny Pickett when we made that trade. I know at that point, the Colts weren't 100% sure who was going to start, and they weren't really looking to move off of Richardson. But we are now at the point where the Colts have a young quarterback who looks like it's their future. And I think Anthony Richardson should look to be traded. Now, here's the thing. Richardson's still technically a rookie. He's on his rookie contract. He's not technically a rookie. And I think he should look to be moved. And I think for the Raiders, you should also look to get a quarterback of the future, one you can develop. And I know this is not going to happen, right? And just to clarify, we're not making this trade because Geno Smith's going to be benched and we need another quarterback. That's not going to happen, right? Geno Smith will not be benched. Even if the Raiders lose every single game for the rest of the season, Geno won't be benched. I just don't see Pete Carroll making that move and making that switch either. I think it's more likely that if Geno Smith gets hurt, we could see a guy like Kenny Pickett or Aiden Connell come in. But I would be shocked if Geno Smith is not the starter for the Raiders. We paid him $75 million to come over here. We give a third-round pick. We're not moving off of Geno Smith. And, I'm not saying that, like, I'm hoping we don't move off of Geno Smith, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think Pete Carroll's not the type of coach to move off of his quarterback this quickly. But Pete Carroll's also the type of coach to have a secondary plan. And I know Kenny Pickett has kind of already been that guy, right? I think we give, fourth round pick to bring in Kenny Pickett. We have Aiden as well, where we decided to kind of keep him around as well, as opposed to Cam Miller, although I think Cam Miller is still technically with the team as well. Even though the Raiders have decided that, hey, Kenny Pickett's going to be that guy, I think Anthony Richardson still has more upside than Pickett, than Aiden. And I'm not saying Pickett doesn't have upside. Truth be told, I think both Pickett and Richardson have a lot more upside than a guy like AOC. AOC is obviously limited, but I think the Raiders have to look at different options for the long term. Because if the Raiders get the 5th overall pick in the draft this year, right, it's not guaranteed that the 3 teams that all have 1 wins, it's not guaranteed any of those teams win another game. And we already have 2 wins, so we might end up with the 4th or 5th overall pick, which also means the Raiders will probably not get a quarterback. And right now, it looks like there's only one good quarterback coming out. And every other quarterback in the draft is, scheme fit, developmental, and those type of things. And also, I think it'd be smarter for the Raiders to figure out a veteran quarterback, right, or a guy that's been in the league for a couple years already. The way the Colts, were able to hit with Daniel Jones, the way you got Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, who were kind of able to revive their career, and most recently Mac Jones having success as well with the 49ers. I think that route makes so much more sense than saying we're going to draft the quarterback in the top 5. Yes, you can draft a quarterback and get the next Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but you could also get the next Kenny Pickett, right? So I think for the Raiders, bringing in a quarterback like Anthony Richardson would make sense, but we already kind of made that decision, right? We've already kind of made that decision for Kenny Pickett. So at this point, I think you're giving up picks where it might not make sense to give up picks. I think the Raiders should probably just stick with kind of what they have. And, obviously these rumors are going to continue to come up until the trade deadline actually happens. But I think it would just be smart for the Raiders to stick with the current group of quarterbacks they have. If Geno Smith struggles and he loses the next 4 or 5 games, let's see what Kenny Pickett has. Let's just see what he looks like to finish the season. Because at the very minimum, that at least gives you some more flexibility as you go into the offseason. You can move off of Geno Smith if Kenny Pickett shows a little bit of upside. You can also go into the offseason. If Geno sucks and Kenny Pickett sucks, at least your quarterback situation sucks, and you can go to the draft or the free agency period and figure it out at that point. I know Daniel Jones is technically with the Colts, but he's technically only on a 1-year contract. And who knows? What if the Colts decide, hey, we want Anthony Richardson to still be the future? I don't think they're going to do that. But the Vikings did. They moved off Sam Darnold and they kept J.J. McCarthy, which I think was a mistake at that point. Not that I think J.J. McCarthy can't develop and won't be good, but Sam Darnold was already good and he's already showing a ton of upside. So we'll see what ends up happening, man. Either way, I'm excited for Raiders football, man. I know a lot of you guys are not, but I'm a fan, man. Love football, love watching the Raiders. So hopefully we have a little bit of success against the Jags. We'll see what ends up happening. Let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.